think you're still muted, Michiko.
Hi, I was messing around with the recording settings, but now we are recording. And we'll be sharing the video and audio on the Google Docs and on Twitter and Facebook and stuff. I forgot to do this at the beginning of the call because I just made my coffee, but now I have coffee, and I forgot that I wanted to ask this at the beginning, but it would be awesome if you could post maybe in the chat, or you could just say right now where you're Skyping in from or Zooming in from, because we just love to know more about our community and stuff. Yeah, I'm Skyping in from LA where it's 7 a.m. But we had this very lengthy discussion at the office multiple times about how we at Reaction wanted to be more accommodating for different time zones. So that's why we've all been waking up at 7 a.m. because we wanted to especially do like better times for the East Coast in Europe or anywhere else. So knowing more about where people are calling in from helps us make better decisions on that. So yeah, cool. The next section in our call is sharing what we'll be working on from the next 2 weeks. Spencer, do you want to talk about the new orders dashboard updates?
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm actually going to share my screen a little bit here and run the risk of everything that happens anytime we do a demo. But let's see where I can figure out how to zoom the correct screen here. All right. There we go. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Is that too big maybe? Shrink that a little bit. Okay, so one of the things that we've been working really hard on over the last few weeks and are going to be working on for probably the next week or so, maybe a little bit less, but we've been redesigning the whole orders page. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted to show you guys because I don't think we've really done a live demo of some of these things before. So you may have seen some of this order screen before, but one of the PRs that is currently in review right now allows us to do what we're calling line item refunds. So if I go ahead and approve and capture this payment, you now have a captured payment of almost $16. We've got one item here. Actually, let's do a different order. Let's check this order out because there's 2 items. So we'll approve, we'll capture this order. And then what we can do is we can actually click on the invoice here, which is going to pop up a little window that allows us to create a refund based on the items that are in it. So this would be a process you could use for, I guess, doing returns on the inside, or if a customer was unhappy with a single item, or if you just needed to refund a single item for any given reason. This new interface allows you to do that. So you can see here, I can either refund nothing. If I click this box up here, I can refund everything. I can uncheck one of those, and again, refund that single item that's checked. This box here is showing the total quantity that is left in the order after all of the refunds go through. So if we uncheck this, you'll see we have 1. I can just decrease the quantity and say, okay, they actually meant to order 0 of those. Click refund items. It's going to offer me a refund. We've got some I-18N issues, which is partly why this is still in review. But you click refund amount. I'm going to refund, and now we have 0 of these items going through here. So you can see we had a refunded amount. We have a captured total. We now have an adjusted total, which is essentially the captured total less the refund. We could do this again. So this is not limited to doing just once, but we could issue a single item refund for, as many items as we have in the order. So again, I could do this exact same process and refund those items. I could do the check mark. This one's already been refunded, so it's still refunding it, but there's 0 items, so it's not actually going to refund any money. But we could refund this item again. And now we have a refund where the only cost was the shipping cost. So that's kind of one of the bigger pieces that we've been moving forward. I don't know how many of you guys have actually seen a lot of the order updates we've had lately, but we've had a number of people working pretty hard on this. Another thing that we've been working on over here in Orderland is the filters, which, there we go. Okay, so I guess the shipping status filters are not built yet, but we have status. We can filter for new orders. We can filter for processing orders, which is all 3 of these. We can filter for canceled orders. We can filter for captured orders. And captured is a process here, a process step. So once the order is captured, it's in a different state than once it's been kind of captured and started processing, I think is what's going on there. But it allows you to quickly look through orders so that if you want to find all of the new orders that maybe you haven't started processing, you can quickly jump into that. And this is another section that is currently in PR and we'll be working on over the next 2 weeks. So that's just a quick little preview of what's coming up. And what the core team has been working on in terms of orders.
Awesome. Thanks. Thanks for that. Just a reminder that a lot, not only does Reaction kind of do our code open source, but we also kind of open source all of our project boards and also even our design comps, if you ever wanted to dig more deep into that. I just posted a link in the agenda where Brian, our designer, posts his little Kanban board on GitHub, and that's where you can also see, screenshots of our comps and links to Zeppelin and things like that. If you ever wanted to get more deep into different flows and things like that. Yep. And now for the next section, updates from our community. And when I say community, I mean everything from GitHub, the Gitter chats, and the forums. And also things that we're working on internally as different events and stuff. So first, as Aaron alluded to earlier, just another kind of PSA that both on the docs repository and the Reaction repository, we're moving from merging to a development branch into merging to master instead. And actually there's a little asterisk to that because right now in Reaction, we've been merging to Marketplace because that's the main branch that we're using. But at one point soon, Marketplace will be merged into master and we'll be kind of going full speed ahead with merging into master. And to go along with that, on the docs side, I've created a Marketplace branch in docs as well, where I've been putting in documentation on how to use features that right now are only in Marketplace. So check out the links to that. I wanted to give a shout out for people who've been contributing to the docs lately because we've had some great fixes and also even just brand new documentation. So Joshua Cox, that's a GitHub and Gitter forum handle. He's been making fixes and also just made the entire new section detailing Docker in the docs. So those have been awesome. And lastly, I wanted to just give another plug to our JSDoc API documentation. It's a little bit in beta because we don't have kind of it organized yet but it's still pretty useful for looking up how to use a specific method. And I can share my screen at this point. Let's see. Share screen. So if you can see that, this is our API docs, and the way I got there was clicking Core API from the homepage of the docs. And just dissecting a method here. If I'm trying to look up the create cart method, I could see the parameters for what I could use in it and also what it returns. Even has like fun little to-do notes. And those all come directly from the code here. So as a team, we've been getting better at making sure we have these, and also making sure that they're consistent and useful and things like that. So yeah, that's it. We'll definitely be making more updates to this page really soon, so keep a lookout for that. And yeah, did someone say something?
No, but I went off of mute because I was just going to add that, especially the group listening into these calls are actively in the code most of the time. So adding to the JS doc comments wherever appropriate, it would be appreciated. And those are kind of PRs that we would merge quickly as well. So, if you just happen to be in there and doing nothing else, add comments and we'll take them.
Yeah, those would be amazing. I've been looking around in the forums lately, and sometimes I like to look for just different trends and questions people are asking, or different kinds of projects people are working on. And so I wanted to kind of pose another question to the greater community, and you could answer in the chat or just in the call. But what kinds of shops have you been kind of using with Reaction lately, or brainstorming to using with Reaction lately? Whether it's, a big e-commerce shop or a small one or a marketplace. And we had a question in the forums lately that someone asked, has anyone made a subscription-based site with Reaction? Something like your own little Birchbox, or being able to subscribe to razors or something. And it doesn't seem like there are any examples out there in the forums yet, but just wanted to see if people were interested in that or people were working on that. And if you do know about it, you can answer it in the forums.
I'll mention that I've heard from multiple people who have expressed interest in creating a subscription-based e-commerce platform based on Reaction. I don't know who's actively building, or if anybody's kind of working on an open source plugin for subscription-based e-commerce. But it definitely seems like the demand is out there. And so if any of you guys are devs who are looking for a way to kind of make your name in the community, whether you're collaborating or whether you're doing it solo, I think, starting or building kind of the first subscription-based e-commerce plugin for Reaction, I think would be a great way to get your name out there. And it definitely seems like there's a lot of demand for that as well. And I personally don't think it would be too challenging. Some of the harder parts, such as recurring payments, you can use something like Stripe or another type of payments provider that automatically offers recurring payments built in. So I would love to see somebody start working on that, but it does seem like the demand is out there.
Yeah, definitely. And now it's time to just open it up for questions. Does anyone have, any questions? The types of questions that we love to hear are things that, what is it in Reaction Core that's currently blocking you from, getting all the features into your latest plugin? Or what are some other development blockers that you have, particularly on the code side? those are the kinds of questions we love to hear, but we're also down to talk about anything technical, basically. And yeah. Did you see that question, Aaron? Yeah. No progress on analytics, I guess, is the answer.
That is the answer. No progress on analytics. It's on my. I'm gonna do it right now, today, right after this call.
Happening today. It's on his schedule for today.
Yeah.
Don't listen to that. It's probably not actually happening today. It might be tomorrow. Might get pushed.
It's gonna happen. Trust me.
7 a.m. tomorrow. Let's see.
Nothing else? There's got to be some questions out there. I was going to add that for everyone in this room, if there's no other questions, and Machiko, if we're getting ready to wrap up, just the final PSA of the day, we're hiring. We're going to be hiring quite a bit, in fact. So anybody with an interest who really wants to be part of the core team should go to our, I think it's the About Us page on the Reaction site, and just submit a resume or something there, or if that's too formal of a process for you, hunt us down and let us know personally.
There's actually a link directly to the careers in the footer of the site.
Yep.
There you go. There's a link.
Yep.
And then a generic theme. We'd really like someone to build that. That would be awesome. So yes, that would be a great contribution. But we are working on towards that goal. We have an internal project that we're working on, and once that internal project is wrapped up, we'll take that and normalize that, parts of that, to call that a theme and publish out something that can be used as a more generic theme. The only thing different is it's all the things that we've talked about doing before in different places. It's just that there may be 3 or 4, examples of overriding it instead of just a single package that just does themes. Because when people talk about themes, they think, it gets to be a confusing discussion whether it's themes or templates or stylizing or and in most times people want to do stylizing and customization. So that is actually what a theme is probably a combination of multiple elements plus stylizing. And so that's what we need to do, is just build a package that shows off how do I whip out checkout and put a different kind of checkout in there as part of a theme. So that's what our goal is. It's really dependent on when we finish Marketplace and wrap up the internal project that we're doing. And we have a couple internal projects, like example demo shops and things like that we're working on, that we hope to finish slightly after Marketplace, which our target is still the 15th for Marketplace. So we're scrambling to wrap up right now. We all know that things can slide a little, but that is our focus and our target. So the generic themes, and that's true for analytics still too. That just means I'm procrastinating to the very last minute before I start development on that. So,
yeah. One more kind of thought on themes is I think it can be a little daunting to think about building maybe the first full-featured theme for an e-commerce platform like Reaction. But if you break it up and say, maybe I'm going to attack just the PDP, and I'm going to create a theme for the PDP, or I'm going to create a theme for the product grid, or I'm going to create a new look for checkout or something like that. I think you could kind of piece this out so that, maybe the first part of a theme would be just the product grid, or just a replacement for the way checkout looks, or even just a replacement for the checkout completed page, or like there's any number of different places that you could start. And I think once you kind of get into it and really understand how it works with replacing components and adding CSS and all that type of stuff within Reaction, I think it's probably going to turn out to be a lot easier than maybe you think. But I can understand how it's a little bit daunting as an overall project to start. But I will say, this is coming from someone who has themed Reaction in the past, back in the 0.8 to 0.17 days. But I think it's a lot easier now than it was then, with component replacement and React built in, all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely possible. And one thing I would love to see, and I think, maybe there are some places in core where we need to update some code or something like that to make it easier to theme, but it's a lot harder for us to know exactly where we need to do that without someone kind of pushing into those walls or those boundaries first. So as you guys start to build plugins, as you guys start to build themes, those types of things, maybe you run into something that, at least from your perspective, it feels like you just can't proceed on without a change to core. That's a great place to start a discussion on GitHub. That's a great place to bring a question into here, and then we can have some really deep, substantive, technical discussions about maybe why it is the way it is, or how we overcome those, or maybe we do, take a PR to core and we change core a little bit, or we add some type of flexibility. But it's a lot harder to do that until someone's kind of pushing into those boundaries and into those walls.
I think the other thing that may be confusing on themes is something we actually don't talk very much about, and that is the Meteor load order. And conceivably, the question that was just posted there, you should be able to just drop a less file in the top of your root client directory and override any variable that is used anywhere in Reaction. So if that doesn't work, some form of what I just said should work. And that has to do with load order of Meteor, and that the imports are being loaded first, and they should be setting all the variables that are defined there in that variables file before the client loads. And you got to remember that you can always do something super clever, like ZZ _ my file less, and it'll be the last thing that ever loads by the compiler. So if you do that, the other less files will already be imported, loaded, and those variables there will be available to you to override. So our instructions sometimes on how to do things in Reaction are ignoring the instructions of, like, how would you do it if you were just hacking using the Meteor world and regular old stuff? Because we're trying to, like, formalize you into how do you make this as a package. I think it overly complicates it if you're just saying, well, how do I change the colors? Well, I can do that in 50 seconds. It's sort of like, you got to understand a little bit more about the Meteor workings and how the compiler works, because that's really all Meteor is to us, is a giant build tool. And sometimes Meteor is making the build process way more complicated and frustrating than it should be. And just understanding that build process is probably the real insight into how to do theming.
Yeah, I think coming from, I used to work in Rails and Spree most often. And coming from that, it was definitely really instructive for me to go over the beginning part of the Meteor guide and reading the default file load order. Meteor has really great docs, so I just posted the docs to the Meteor file, default file load ordering.
That load order stuff is the bane of our existence. It's the worst thing that Meteor ever did.
Speaking of things
It's
that
well
are,
documented.
But it's very well documented.
Yeah.
But none of it makes sense if you're coming from anywhere
Yeah.
with the same plan and you look at that load order. So, I think one of our next mission statements is to move everything out of the top level client and server directory into another plugin so that everything is outside of the Meteor based directories, so that we can start just saying, hey, well, you can go ahead and do crazy things up at that top level if you want to. We don't care. Because I think we want to get away from any of the Meteor rules as quickly as we can. And that's why we want to move everything into our own imports first.
there's something, and I guess another thing we haven't talked about too much that we're still kind of working on. I run the risk of talking about something that may be more than 2 weeks out, but we're working on structuring our packages in more of an NPM style with a package.json file so that you can actually kind of install and uninstall plugins from the command line, which hopefully will help with some of this theming stuff so that you don't actually have to go in and delete, a plugin if you maybe don't want to include all the standard themes. And you can always just overwrite, with your own theme. But once we get to this place where we're treating plugins more in the NPM style than the Meteor style, I think that's going to add a lot of flexibility in terms of what you're actually loading in your app, and it'll allow us to, have you not load every payment provider if you only want to have one payment provider, for instance. And potentially not load all the different shipping things or all the different tax plugins or all the different themes. So that's on the horizon as well. I can't say for sure that it's within 2 weeks, but it's something that we've been actively working on.
It's not, but but yeah. To Spencer's point, I mean, I've been doing a lot of the research. Jeremy's been doing research and how we're going to implement this, and. We've talked about it a little bit before that the npm manifest directory has all the manifests built and everything, but what we have really at the problem is dealing with the load order and the import order, and also the ever-changing landscape of Meteor. So 1.6, there's sort of talk within the community channels of deprecating the recommendation to use the imports directory, which would be, we moved everything out of the package directory because they have crazy logic wrapped around the package directory, and now they want to do the same kind of damaging stuff to the imports directory. So, this is why we really just want to put all of our stuff in a directory that has nothing to do with Meteor. And some of the 1.6 commentary has been that they might build a package JSON that allows you to define what the Meteor compiler uses. If that happens, then we'll be home free and we'll be able to do everything that we want. As it stands, we've been looking at ways to sort of circumvent the Meteor transpiling and do our own transpiling. And that, that may end up being, but sometimes it's just better to wait it out, and 1.6 is on, like, I don't know where we're at, like beta 92. So 1.6 should be coming any day now from Meteor, and when that happens, we'll take a closer look at this.
What's LDAP? I don't even.
So LDAP, no, but LDAP is a authorization endpoint like OAuth, but way older, sort of back in the day. Still obviously well used by a lot of organizations, and I would suggest that there's probably an NPM or a GASP, a Meteor atmosphere package that already has LDAP set up. But yeah, I would say that you could grab something out of NPM really quickly to do that. But if you're suggesting Meteor accounts, specifically tie-in for Meteor accounts, I would put money on it. Somebody Google it real quick. That there's an atmosphere package for it.
Account /LDAP.
There you go.
Bingo. On that note, I would recommend not using Meteor packages and just go into the code. And if it's a friendly license like the MIT license, just take the code from it, update it to ES6. It'll be like an hour or 2 hour project. You'll learn a lot about how Meteor packages work, which will be valuable. But you'll also remove that reliance on your own code of having that Meteor package, which I think will probably make it easier to continue to upgrade with Reaction. Not saying you were about to eliminate Meteor packages, but
however, we wish for that day to happen, and anybody who wants to take a whack at any package that we use in our core that's an Atmosphere package, and you want to take a whack at converting it to a local Reaction package or an NPM package, we would gladly assist that effort in almost any Meteor package that you see in the /Meteor /versions packages files. .meteor /packages is what I'm referring to. I don't know what NPM Passport is.
I think Passport is middleware for Express and Connect apps, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I've used that, but
yeah. No, I wouldn't suggest this one. Actually, I've actually looked at this before too, but because the accounts package does have so much wiring to it, that's the one package I would say that we'll probably continue to use for Meteor. That's probably 90% of the reason Meteor got the adoption they did when they did, was having something like that. And I think it's because they refactored that like a year ago, and desperately needed refactor that sort of abstracted the code out to a pretty decent level. I think we'll continue to use their accounts.
right. If you're looking for kind of authentication over REST or something like that, there are a few Meteor packages out there. I think Stubilo is the one who developed them. Simple authenticate user by token, and there's a few other out there that are related to kind of the endpoints package that I actually just rewrote for Reaction. But I think he actually has an example. If you look at Meteor REST on GitHub, Meteor-REST, there are some examples as to how to connect user accounts and have them authenticate over some type of HTTP protocol rather than using the built-in UI or something.
And we actually did that in our own package. If you look at the Meteor DDP login package, which is on the Reaction Ecommerce repo, or maybe not, could be so old that it might be on the OngoWorks repo. And the public disclaimer, we haven't maintained it or done anything. I haven't looked at it in like a million years. But it is also doing authentication and showing examples of how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Reaction, Meteor DDP login. Just discovered that we have that.
Yay, open source. There's a lot of hidden gems in the main Reaction organization.
The really hidden gems are under the OngoWorks organization, which I hope to nuke someday.
Too hidden.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah.
I'm distracted by all those OngoWorks goodies you just pulled up.
I know. Yeah, the design of the Atmosphere site is quite nice, actually.
I'm telling you, man.
You haven't tried to use it for functional purposes yet.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, it looks like we're wrapped up with questions. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Great to see you.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.